Have you ever felt surrounded by everything, and yet strangely empty? Pascal said that every human carries inside a God-shaped void, a cavernous emptiness that no earthly pleasure or achievement can ever truly fill. It's an internal chasm that whispers of something more, a hunger for the infinite in a world of finite things. Hell may not be made of fire, but of that abyss never filled, a dark hole where the human heart screams, a silent, desperate cry for meaning, for connection, but no one answers. The greatest pain is not the absence of pleasure, it is the absence of meaning. The haunting realization that life's grand pursuits were all for nothing. Imagine a soul that searched relentlessly in everything. Wealth amassed, applause earned, fleeting passions, the cold logic of reason, the sterile certainty of science, the endless diversion of entertainment, the fleeting glory of recognition, and still found nothing but the echoing void. That soul is already in hell, even now, even alive, walking among us, a ghost in its own life. Pascal saw this world not as a home, but as a temporary waiting room for the eternal. He observed how most people are so consumed by their games, their infinite scrolls, their empty distractions, that they fail to grasp the gravity of their situation. They are so busy with the trivial that they don't realize they're placing the highest bet of existence with every choice they make. Yes, Pascal made a wager, not with money or possessions, but with eternity itself. The famous Pascal's wager wasn't a spiritual blackmail designed to scare people into belief. It was a cruel, stark mirror held up to show the truth of their own actions. He said, "You are already betting, even if you think you're not. Every moment you live as if God doesn't exist, every decision you make based on that assumption is your bet. And what if you're wrong?" Hell, according to Pascal, is the chilling echo of a heart that refused to believe, not out of intellectual rigor, but out of a deeper refusal rooted in pride, arrogance, or a paralyzing fear of surrendering control. It's the soul that closed itself off, convinced it was self-sufficient, too rational for faith, too modern for God, too enlightened for humility. But when the light of the world inevitably goes out, only inner darkness remains. Hell, then, is crystallized pride, the ultimate manifestation of "I don't need anyone" elevated to its eternal state. It is the final devastating consequence of "leave me alone." And in that moment, God's response is not a punishment, but a sorrowful affirmation. "So be it," Pascal wrote. God hides from those who flee from him and reveals himself to those who seek him with the heart. But he also lamented, who seeks with the heart in a world where the heart has been numbed? A world where pain is immediately ignored, where doubt is quickly medicated with a pill or a new distraction, and where deep existential fear is disguised as cynical irony. Pascal spoke of a man who lives in a perpetual state of flight, running from himself, from the unsettling silence, from the voice of his own conscience, from the inescapable reality of death. He runs because deep down, in a place he refuses to acknowledge, he knows. He knows something is terribly wrong, that the constant laughter is a flimsy mask, that his soul is screaming for attention, and so he keeps scrolling, desperately trying to drown out the noise within. This is the beginning of hell. There are no pitchforks, no mythical monsters. There's only you, alone with the profound emptiness you created and the fundamental truths you refuse to face. Pascal looked at the world and saw a theater, but not a light-hearted comedy. It was a tragic comedy, a stage where clowns cry inside while the audience laughs, desperately trying not to scream. And you are on that stage, playing your part, often unaware of the tragedy unfolding within. Hell begins not with fire, but in the laughter that hides despair, in the clever joke that desperately tries to mask the emptiness, in the forced chuckle that echoes like a disguised cry for help. Pascal wrote, with profound insight, "Nothing is more unbearable to man than being in complete rest, without passions, without distractions, without occupation. He feels his nothingness, his inadequacy, his dependence, his weakness, his emptiness. This is the core reason why we run. We fill our lives with endless noise and activity so we don't have to hear the terrifying echo of our own being, the quiet truth of our own insignificance without God. And hell, this uniquely Pascalian hell, is precisely the place where all distractions finally vanish, where there's no more Netflix, no Instagram feed to scroll, no busy work to occupy your hands, no manufactured chaos to fill the silence. There is only silence. And the stark, naked soul, a naked soul standing before the eternal mirror, unable to look away. In that moment, you will be forced to see with perfect clarity what you did with your time. You will see what you ignored, who you hurt, the moments of grace you rejected, the promises you betrayed, and the countless lies you told yourself to get by. But the worst revelation of all will be seeing what you could have become. Hell is not made only of what you did, but of the crushing weight of the absence of what you refused to become. Pascal called this the misery of the human condition. It is the paradox of a being with the glory of reason, capable of sublime thought, mixed with the horror of sin and the shame of daily triviality. It is the thirst for eternity living side by side with the suffocating boredom of each day. We are capable of reasoning about the infinite, about the stars and the cosmos, but we cannot face the simple burden of a Monday. We are made in the very image of God, but we live as if we were nothing more than bundles of instinct, dragged along by our vanity and a relentless stream of trivialities. Hell, therefore, is the ultimate degradation of the sublime. It is the divine in ruins. It is the glorious statue shattered from within. And in this absurd theater of life, everyone pretends. They pretend everything's fine, that they know exactly where they're going, that they are not, in fact, terrified of death. But Pascal saw the quiet desperation in their gaze behind the pretense. And you know, if you're truly honest with yourself, that something is profoundly wrong. Hell begins when you silence the deepest questions of your soul, when you trade that soul's desperate cry for the predictable noise of routine. It begins when the eternal is ignored so that the endless loop of entertainment doesn't stop. But a moment will come when everything stops. And when it stops, what's left? Only truth. Pascal said, "The heart has its reasons which reason does not know." And in hell, you will feel every one of those reasons, every ignored plea, every silenced intuition, but it will be too late to act on them. Every one of them, but it's too late. Imagine waking up in a place where all illusions have been stripped away, where every comfort, every distraction, every lie you told yourself is gone. You still have consciousness, a vivid, relentless consciousness. You still remember life, the time you wasted, the conversations you avoided, the quiet silences you ignored in favor of noise. But you can no longer change anything. This is the fire of hell, not a fire that consumes the body in a moment of pain, but a fire that burns the soul with the searing agony of regret, a fire that never destroys it. Pascal said the greatest tragedy of man is living without thinking about what truly matters. We are masters at avoiding the essential, experts in running just so we don't have to feel. And hell, this windowless, timeless, terrifyingly empty place, is where everything you postponed, everything you ran from, finally awaits you with arms open. The pain there is not physical. It is a profound and unceasing moral pain. It is the brutal, inescapable reflection of a hollow life, an eternity built on the shifting sand of your own denial. You had a chance. And in the depths of your being, you always knew it. You knew what was right, what was true, but you chose to mock. You laughed at those who believed. You called weak those who had the humility to kneel. You preferred to seem smart, to be the clever skeptic, than to be true. And now, your intelligence, the very tool you used to justify your pride, becomes your greatest curse. Because in hell, reason doesn't save you, it condemns you. You see everything clearly, every failure, every wrong turn, every path you refuse to take, and you realize with chilling certainty that time has run out. Pascal saw reason as a sharp blade, a magnificent tool able to cut through lies and falsehoods, but also tragically capable of cutting the soul itself. And if you used your reason only to justify your pride, to despise faith, to flee from the humbling truth of your own smallness, now that same reason will relentlessly show you every single empty argument and rationalization you ever made with chilling precision. In hell, there are no excuses. There are no masks to hide behind. You are seen entirely for who you truly are. And for the first time, you also see yourself. What do you see in that eternal mirror? A lost child desperately pretending to be strong? A heart that was capable of love but chose to hide in fear? A man who, in his quiet moments, sought God, but got distracted by the relentless clamor of the world? Pascal believed the human heart only finds true rest in God. Everything else is just a temporary bandage, a flimsy distraction from the wound. And in hell, all the bandages are gone. Only the wound remains, raw and exposed, only the scream of a soul in agony, and the silence of God. Not because he hates you, but because he respects you. He respects your choice. He honors your freedom. He accepts your final, definitive no. And hell becomes the eternalization of that no. No to God. No to grace. No to forgiveness. No to truth. You were not pushed into the abyss by a vengeful God. You dug it yourself, one small, proud decision at a time. Hell, said Pascal, is not so much a punishment inflicted from the outside as it is a consequence unfolding from the inside. It is the final, terrifying sum of all the times you said no to the whisper of truth in your heart. Every choice made in pride. Every witty sarcasm thrown at the simplicity of faith. Every single night when your conscience tried to speak, but was silenced with the next round of pleasure. The distracting noise of a new project, or the cold comfort of irony. Every time you said, I'll think about it later. Every casual dismissal of belief as nonsense. Every defiant, I don't need God, now echoes. It echoes not in a grand hall, but within the cavern of your own soul, forever. Pascal didn't paint hell with vivid descriptions of fire and sulfur. He painted it with the more profound, more crushing agony of absence. Absence of meaning. Absence of light. Absence of love. Because God is the source of all those things, and when you choose to live your life entirely without God, in the end, you find yourself living without everything. You are free. Yes, absolutely. But you are also free to face the eternal, unchangeable consequences of that freedom. Pascal saw man as a walking paradox, a creature of misery and greatness. He famously said, man is only a reed, the weakest in nature, but he is a thinking reed. We are a thinking reed who, in our pride, thought ourselves a god, a creature who, in our arrogance, mocked the very grace that could have saved us, a soul who rejected love out of a deep-seated fear of surrender, a fear of losing control. And the result of that rejection? Here it is, the place where the proud shine but alone, in a cold and sterile light, where souls keep shouting into the void, I have no regrets. But the desperate scream no longer moves anyone, not even themselves, because in hell there is no change. No more time to reconsider, only eternity. And in that eternity, everything you are, every choice you made, every refusal you voiced crystallizes into a permanent, unchanging state. That's why Pascal pleaded with such urgency for an encounter with God before death, before the heart hardened into an impenetrable stone, before the soul got so used to the comforting lie that it could no longer recognize the truth. Eternity is real, and the wager is unavoidable, he said. You may shut your eyes to truth, but you cannot shut eternity away from yourself. You may laugh at faith. You may mock the believers. You may call all of this madness, a fable for the weak. But when the ground disappears from beneath your feet, when time ends, when the game is finally over, you'll find out it wasn't a game at all. The last laugh will be the abyss itself, and it will be made of the echo of your own voice when you said no. Hell is not where a vengeful God locks you in. It's the final desolate place where you lock yourself in, and in a final act of ultimate defiance, you throw away the key. But it's too late.